Can I have your attention, please? Once again, welcome. We have a very special treat today. We have started this tradition a few years ago. George started this tradition of offering talks on Greek Independence Day. Today we have the special pleasure to have a double talk, both by George Asimelis and by Kimberly Patton, and they will look at the same reality from different perspectives. So please give them your undivided attention.
Thank you, Father. Thank you all for coming. I have to confess, usually when I'm ready to talk about Greek independence or Greek history aspect, I think I know it. I think I know it because I grew up in Greece, and we are always being, told about this in school, and I've heard about it. Yet, I can't. Okay, I need to monitor this. So usually, I think I know it until it's time for me to start talking about it. And then I realize that I do not. And this is one more aspect. I thought it was going to be an easy thing for me. I know it all. So let me start by a few things that are fun. I grew up in Greece, as you probably know, and specifically, this is my home address. Let me find the mouse. Okay, Athens. Okay, and then it is going to center where I live. That's the old airport. That's the new airport here. Those of you who are familiar with. And this is actually my home where I grew up. That's exactly where I grew up.
Wow.
And I have to tell you, I don't know if you can read this, but you can read the street name is Thermopylon from the Battle of Thermopylae. But right across where I live, there's a street called Fadieru. And then Mezonos, and then Santa Rosa. And I thought, who are these guys and why the name? Why the name came. So I'm going to talk to you about actually my childhood questions, really, that made me think, okay, who are these guys? So let's, without further ado, get started with a talk of Philhellenic. I don't know if you remember, we had the mayor announcing the commemoration of the Greek Independence Day, and we gave him a talk to read. And one of the sentences says about the Philhellenic, and he couldn't spell it out, so we had to whisper to his ear, it is Philhellenic. Philhellenic, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about, the people who made the difference in. So, in Greece again, this is downtown Athens. You can see streets like Fadieru, Mezonos, Pouqueville, Victoros Hugo, Veranzerou. And if you have been to Athens, this is close to Omonia Square, and there's a lot of, that's the financial district part, to say. So probably you've been there. I have been there, and if you ask me who are these guys, most likely I will tell you I do not know. Mayer, who are these guys? Why the names? Satovriandou, and that's my hometown. That's my home with the streets, and you can see we having these street names, and sometimes we like to have both the Greek name and kind of transliteration, but not translation. So we try the English word to sound very similar to the Greek word. So in a way, I may say we butchered. Really, the way we translate them, we butcher them. But I still have, and these are street names, these are typical street signs from Athens, Greece. And you can see names like Veranzerou, Mayer, Marni, Mezonos, Pouqueville, Satovriandou, Sonieru. If you pick up a typical Greek in the middle of the street of Athens, and ask them, what is this guy, most likely you're going to get what? As a response. Who are they? I'm not sure. So, who are they? These are the Philhellenics. The people who came to be known as those who love Greece and did not just simply state that I love Greece, okay, but actually acted upon it. Acted when this action meant sacrifice. Acted when this action meant to leave the comfort of your own home and give your blood for a cause that is not even yours. And this is why we talk about today. So what did they do? Some of them physically participated in the struggle. They came in to fight. They brought in arms. And many of them died in the battlefield. Some of them provided material support, important. They brought money, they raised funds, ammunition. Some of them engaged in political activities in their own home countries, or they came to support the struggle and set up the state, the new state. Some of them provided moral support with publications, paintings, declarations. And what were the motives? This is an example of what happened. I don't know if you're familiar with Philhellenic, a city in Greece that was besieged several times, holding a strategic point in western Greece, and it was besieged several times. And the final battle, it fell, and basically was raised by the Turkish army. And the sacrifice was a turning point in our struggle for independence. And this is publication in Paris. What I'd like to bring attention, and I will translate, it says, I will say it in Greek and then English. Γυζημωμένοι με το αίμα μας δεν πονείτε. Blood has fallen. This land is holy. It's not for sale. And that was the message here. So, light fermented with our blood is not for sale. If you think that it was only Europeans, let me bring you to this country. The most celebrated name in that time was George Washington, whose name was brought to Greece as Washington. For some reason, W was spelled V in Greek. So, George Washington. So, Dionysius Solomos, I may say, our national poet, had this in the poem Hymn to Liberty. I will try to translate this here, mentioning how deep was the idea of liberty, so that America, you, Washington, Andrea means the strong, the glorious man of liberty. So Dionysius almost mentions George Washington, and also the land of the free home of the brave, saying when the news came to America about people wanting to be free for the Holy Land, just like the land of Washington. So we try to connect ideas. The most common connection of the Philhellenics was idealistic, the love of liberty. Some of them were romantics, driven by the classical Greek inspiration that shaped Western civilization. The idea that this nation that once brought democracy and philosophy and the language of the Gospels, the language of the epistles. If you read the epistles, were written all. Some of them were rebels, they loved the action. Some of them were merchants who came for reaction again. Some of them were educational or religious establishment, and motivated by ideals. And that's important to understand. The ideals that make you ask for trouble for someone else. And think about it, back then, Greece, when we had our independence struggle, was not an easy one. It was actually the first nation to seek independence from an occupier that without the support of another army. Most nation states in Europe were formed after the First World War, when the empires collapsed. They didn't really actively solve. Something similar can only be found parallel in the American Revolution, where Americans were the first nation to actually beat the British Army. Think about it. I don't think in history of British Empire the British Army was beaten in battle or war. All other nations gained independence because the British were wrong and couldn't fight. They didn't have the ability to do so, but actually Americans fought and had support by the French. So see the connections here. And so in Europe, it started, but also in America. And we have some paintings here. This is a very famous painting in the Greek National Gallery, entitled Greece, Hellas, Ephraimos and Grateful. And I want to show you that it's not only those who fought, actually, but those who had the moral war, the moral battles. And some of them were the Philhellenics. And not only they had, but they came, they fought, they gave the blood. This is another famous painting in the National Gallery mentioning Hellas Ephraimousa, meaning grateful Greece, to those who gave the blood. And the first, there's many, many names. Those are the first, top of the line, are those who actually died in battle. So let me walk you through some names. So you are in Greece. If you ever go to downtown Athens, near Platia Omonias, that's the Ammonia Square, you will see those Veranzeros. And who was this guy? First of all, his name was Pierre Jean de Béranger. Make it Veranzero again. Doesn't even sound the same name. Who was he? Of course, I did not know. I had to look through that. He was a poet, famous, who actually through his poems raised the issue. Hey, look at these people struggling for independence. Pouqueville, another French guy, François Salles, who's Laurent Pouqueville, diplomat, physician, historian. So he actually came visiting Greece before the battle, and he knew, and he tried to talk to people about helping these people, and he wrote a lot. He was very eloquent in publications. William Creek, that was a German one. Favier, Charles Favier, he was a French, actually, he had the rank of general in the French army. He came to Greece to fight. He only asked for the silver rank of soldier, good soldier. And guess what? He fought, he died. Another guy, Chateaubriand, another name. You can see the names, and now I connect who they were. And he said about basically he set up the French Philhellenic Committee, raising funds, raising awareness against the oppressive governments who did not really want any much trouble. Mayer, another guy, he was Austrian, and he actually published. He came to set up a publication, a newspaper, daily newspaper. He brought all the knowledge, and he actually married a Greek, and he changed to Orthodox. Other guys here, Peter von S, German painter. These are some of his paintings. This is the painting depicting the sacrifice of Patriarch Gregorius V in Constantinople. And you know, when you have that, back in the day, these paintings brought a strong message, awareness, and people realize in one thing to hear, you know, the Turks hung a patriarch, another thing to see. Thomas Gordon, another guy who brought tons of ammunition and support and British, I may say, military knowledge. Santore di Santa Rosa, street name Santa Rosa, who was he again? Italian. He was general in the Italian army. He came to Greece to fight again. He shed his blood for our cause. Eynard, Victor Hugo, Les Miserables, and I don't know if you're familiar with the metro system in Athens. There's a train stop called Doukisis Platendias. And something, who is this lady? Well, let me tell you a few things about this lady. This lady, her name was Piacenza Sophie de Barrois Lebrun, Duchess of Placent. She was a very wealthy lady. She gave everything to our cause. She came, she lived in Greece, she gave that her last penny. And this is the train station here. It goes to the airport. So if you take the train, the train system from the airport to go downtown, that's the first station within the metro system. And that's where it is. And now, that's a map of Greece. As you can see, here I have a pointer that shows the tip of the Attica Peninsula, right? Don't know if you've been there, this one. There's a famous ruin, Temple of Poseidon. Look how beautiful it is. Guess what? Many romantics were going there and had a bad habit. Vandalizing. Can you read the name? Byron. Who was he? Well, probably the celebrity of Philhellenic. He was an influencer, if I may say so. He was a lord, very important, poet. Many things are said about his personal life. Say that he left England because he couldn't tolerate his mistress or whatever. I do not know what's true about that, but truth to be told is, he brought everything he had. He sold his house to the last penny for the cause of this. Not only he did so, but one thing that you have to understand is our struggle for independence was actually failing. By the year 25, instead of fighting Turks, guess what we were doing? We were fighting ourselves amongst us, different factions of power. And here's what made a huge difference. A huge difference. The British, with Canning, Lord Canning, the State of Foreign Affairs, Lord Byron, and others, decided to bet on Greece. How do you do so? By providing a state loan from England to Greece. Remind you, Greece was not a state, it was a bunch of rebels at that point. So they really bet that Greece would win, and they supported. Guess who helped this happen? Lord Byron. So some say, yes, we were in debt when we were liberated, but pay attention to the other word, were liberated. Because in the end, the British and the French and the Russians didn't want to lose the money, so they actually supported us. Yes, it happened. So he was an influencer, really. Big name, big shot, big shot. I don't know if Zuckerberg would come or someone else would come in support of a nation that is struggling for independence, but his arrival in Messaloniki, the same city that was besieged, raised significant news, and it was a big, big news. And joyful, he supported battalion. He was the name, and he died slowly. And this famous statue in Athens, it says Greece, holding Byron, and a national poet again, Dionysius Lomos. He said this, I'm going to read it in Greek and then translate, because it's important to have the actual words. It says, Λευτεριά για λίγο πάψε, λευτερπάς προσπαθεί. Meaning, oh liberty, just for a while, don't use your sword. Τώρα σήμος έχει κλάψει του Byron το κορμί. Now, quietly, come shed a tear on Byron's body. That was how much the importance was. And there is a city, municipality in Athens, Greece, called Byron, Vironas, named after Lord Byron. Now, as I was telling you, I knew very little about most of this stuff. Very little. If you ask me, I only knew Byron. The Greek Postal Service, what we have as USPS, we have ELTA in Greece, issued on the commemoration of 250 years of independence, a set of stamps. And they had these names. And when I saw the stamps, I said, what on earth? I did not know any of them. I did not know any of them. Really. So I started looking. Who were they? What number name? No, first name, Alexander Pushkin, the famous Russian poet. Jean Delacroix, French painter, who actually, through his paintings, made things aware. This is the sacrifice of the island of Chios, the massacre of Chios. Some say, you were okay under the Ottomans. Look at this, and then ask yourself, where were you okay under the Ottomans? The whole island was raped. The population was sold to slavery. Whoever lived, whoever survived, was sold to slavery. The entire island. The entire island. Again, this is the Delacroix painting of Greece. Say, come on, help me. I need your help. Can you see this? That was him, Delacroix. And then a few others, like Percy Shelley, British poet, with his famous poet about a brighter Greece. Karl Kaiser Stein, I did not know. I had no idea. And Samuel Gridley Howell. I want to pause here, because this is a moment of personal embarrassment for me. When I visited Brown University, when Vivian was touring campus tours, I visited Brown University. I have this thing, I take photos. And at some point, I hit on this. Actually, I'm going to say right now, and then I come back. I hit on this. I saw this, and I noticed that this was written in Greek. The last word was written in Greek. And then I saw the word Greece here. I saw the word Greece here, whose family origins were from Greece, who was this. And I said, hold on, let me read. What happens here? Who are these people that I have no idea about? And then I saw that was a tribute to Howie. Who was he? And these are the photos I took. Samuel Gridley Howie. And I read, who serves as a surgeon-in-chief to the fleet in Greek War of Independence. Can you imagine we had a surgeon come to Greece? So who was he? Let me go back to this. He was a physician, educated, and he went to Greece to serve as a surgeon. He's from Boston. Educated at Harvard at Brown. And he came in, he absolutely loved Greece, that's him as with the tradition of Fustanella. Not only that, he even, when he came back, raised money, he brought orphans back to America. Orphans, because of this. He's entombed in Mount Auburn Cemetery, right here. And he did bring, this is a commemoration in our own consulate. I was not present. I was not here when this happened, but I had no idea about this. I can tell you this, I had no idea. This is the photos I took from Brown University. And not only that, he had many others, like Jarvis, whose name sounded like Zervas. So Jarvis became Zervas, and we called him Captain Zervas the American. He came, he fought for our own war of independence, and he basically brought in back to America the personal weapons of Lord Byron. And guess where? Came back and forth. He died in Argos, Greece. This is his sword in Vermont. In Vermont, we have the sword. Another guy, James Williams, a former slave. Can you imagine that? A former slave saying, I know what slavery is when I help you get rid of the shackles of slavery. He came, he fought in Greece for our war. He didn't have to, none of them had to do anything. They didn't have to lift a finger. That's a book in Amazon. Actually, Rick, I logged in your account and I ordered it for you.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, welcome.
Much to get
Again, people, can you see, people who have no reason to just get off the bed or couch, come to another country. Imagine this was 1820. Just a ship come from America to Greece would take months and may not even come as we will hear from Kimberly. But these things happen, and so slaves came to help us. Yes.
The question is why? Why did they come?
Exactly.
We're going to get into
A higher motive. The motive of a higher, something that if we just are being counters and are looking for our self-interest, none of us would lift a finger.
Exactly.
And they did.
The other one you showed, the Heos, was that 1821?
22. 1822. Basically, the Turkish army came in and burnt the island entirely, killed everybody. Whoever survived was sold for slavery.
There's a lot of things.
And also Psara. Here's Psara. And also
There's a lot of things there that I read when I went there, all over the place about that.
So, from a grateful nation, we have to say thank you, Philhellenic. And now, the second part by Kimberly about a nation itself, a former.
Thank you so much, George. I have a handout. This is a letter that I'm going to be speaking about later on. I wonder if everyone.
Okay, just note me. I will forward the slides.
Yes.
Okay. Acá pasa nada.
That's a little much. I want to thank everyone for being here for this project, and I especially want to thank my husband for interfering at important points. Thank you. He says to speak up. I'm going to do that. So I want to thank my friend George Asimelis for allowing me to contribute.
It's my honor.
To his lecture series each year. We learn so much from you, George, and in researching this topic, I must say it has been a profound transformation for me. I hope it will be for you. And it very much picks up on the question that Paul just raised. Why would people or an individual who has no shared ethnic or geographical or historical connection be willing to sacrifice, be willing to connect, be willing to recognize? So we're going to go back to the first slide, please, George. So the cry that we know from the Greek Revolution, the Greek struggle for independence, Eleftheria y Thanatos, liberty or death, Patrick Henry's words, familiar, of course, to those who live in New Hampshire, a cry that galvanized the American Revolution. Back to Paul's question, the desire, as George was saying, to live in dignity and freedom from the yoke of tyranny, from forced labor, from enslavement, from taxation and governmental theft of personal property, from the suppression of free thought and free speech, from imprisonment without trial or due process, from forced conscription, from torture, or from the hideous separation of families, and from the control of body and mind. These are all universal human yearnings to breathe free. The desire of a people and individuals and families among those people for self-rule to determine their own destiny. The same desire that fueled the American Revolution in 1776 and the French Revolution in 1789, despite its relapse into what became the full-blown empire under Napoleon Bonaparte in 1799. Okay, next slide, George. Thank you. As George said, many American and European Philhellenes who supported Greek independence were lovers of the culture of Greece, of the idea of democracy and of the region, even adopting its dress. In some cases, the military dress that became a symbol of resistance, later adopted by the Avzones against the Ottoman Empire. Samuel Gridley Howe, he mentioned, here shown in that uniform, while serving as a surgeon in the Greek army, as George mentioned. Lord Byron's portrait in a related form of Albanian dress, this was made in 1813, became a symbol of Balkan identity and of the struggles of both Greece and Albania. Next slide. But there was something else that really united these European and American and Russian supporters of Greece and lovers of Greece. And that was a cultural admiration. And this is Frederick Church's beautiful Parthenon. It was rendered in 1869. So Byron loved Greece, but he also deeply loved Greece as an idea, as a romantic idea, as George mentioned, its ideals of beauty. Lord Byron furiously protested the theft of the marble friezes of the Parthenon by Lord Elgin between 1801 and 1805. We are, in a way, thinking about the past as something that is behind us, but there is a sense in which, as a historian, I often contemplate the present of the past and how the past continually reveals itself in new ways, thus creating a kind of future of the past, and that's something I'm going to speak about a bit later. We now know, for example, that the Parthenon and all ancient Greek temples and all ancient Greek statues were not white. They were, in fact, brightly painted so that they sparkled like translucent rainbows. We know now, as of last year, that these statues were anointed with aromatic oil, the way we might anoint our icons today. And this love of ancient Greek culture, as George said, helped make Lord Byron a hero. So not only his love of democracy, his willingness to fund and to die for Greek freedom, but also his love of ancient Greek culture. And this is the sculpture that George referenced, which is in Athens near the National Garden. It was erected in 1895. In 2022, April 19th was declared, the day of his death in 1824 was declared Lord Byron Day by the Greek Parliament. And he was once again lifted up for his sacrifices. Next slide, please. Last night, I wanted to be sure that I included these photos of our own Byron, Byron Matthews, a towering figure in our church, much beloved and really the hero of the Renaissance of Newburyport. Melissa Patrick's uncle, someone we remember with so much love, but named after Lord Byron. So part of this Philhellenic heritage that we're talking about today. So I want to take a little bit of a turn, a little bit of a detour about a history that I only knew a bit about, and that I want to unpack a little today, and to, in a way, complement and supplement some of the ideas that George mentioned. The homelands of these American and European Philhellenes, their governments did not, in fact, refused to recognize Greece as a new republic when Greece asked. Even when Greece asked for that recognition of legitimacy and desperate need for support, as Greeks were dying in the struggle for freedom in 1821. So here we have the Union Jack of the time. Below this study by John Trumbull of the surrender of Lord Cornwallis at Yorktown in 1781. You see the French fleur de lis on the left and the American stars and stripes on the right. Okay. The only country that did respond and did recognize the new Republic of Greece as a legitimate republic, the first to do so when asked to by Adamantios Corrês, was Haiti. This was the flag of Haiti in 1803. Liberté ou la mort, the same phrase. Liberty or death. Eleftheria thanatos. Go ahead. And this is their flag now. Next slide. Haiti is the western third of the island of what the Spaniards called Hispaniola. And Haiti is actually its indigenous Taino name, which they adopted after liberating themselves from French enslavement. It is part of the Antilles, the Greater Antilles of the Caribbean. It's located between Cuba and Puerto Rico. It's the most populous island in the West Indies. And the Dominican Republic, as we know, occupies the eastern 2/3. Okay, next slide. It was traditionally known as Saint-Domingue. In 1695, Saint-Domingue, the western part of the island, was ceded to the French by Spain and was developed ferociously in coffee and sugar plantations. Between 1697 and 1804, France imported enslaved Africans to farm coffee and sugar up these plantations. Okay, next slide. Because of this experience, there began to arise among Haitians, particularly those who were able to buy their own freedom or to escape slavery, a love of freedom. This is a memorial in Savannah, Georgia, from 1779. These are the 500 famous chasseurs volontaires who are honored in this memorial. They came in the 4th year of the American Revolution, which had become an international conflict, to support the American colonies and their French allies in an attempt to capture Savannah from the British. So that they came to support that attempt to capture Savannah. And in this battle, many of them died. And this beautiful memorial, which was put up a few decades ago, reminds the reader of the sacrifice that men of African descent, and women too, made also in the American Revolution, throughout the Revolution, not only this one battle. So this is well before their own liberation, in fighting in the American Revolution. Okay, next slide. In 1803, a violent rebellion that had started in 1791 and been violently suppressed of enslaved peoples ended with not only the compulsion of Napoleon Bonaparte to sell Louisiana to the U.S. To fund his efforts to suppress it in 1803. And this rebellion, this uprising, this revolution for freedom, next slide, was led by brilliant generals and figures such as Toussaint Louverture. It ended up, this is Jean-Jacques Dessalines, the first, back up a little bit, hang on, sorry. The first head of state until his assassination in 1806. We're back up to Toussaint Louverture. This was a success. Okay, stop moving around. Oh, that's okay. No, that's fine. I'm just switching between people. Okay, so this is the first head of state, Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Just stay there just for a second. The Haitian struggle for freedom was a 13-year insurrection against French colonial rule, and on January 1st, 1804, Haitian independence was declared under the flag which you saw earlier. Okay, this is Jean-Pierre Boyer. He's the second president of Haiti. He was inaugurated in 1818. Could I have the next slide, Joe? In this wonderful painting which shows his inauguration in the capital of Port-au-Prince in 1818. And this is a painting by Adolphe Eugène Gabrielon. And we pause on Jean-Pierre Boyer just for a moment because of a famous letter that he wrote. And you have a copy of that letter at your seats. Okay, can we have the next slide? Oh, no, back up a little bit. Sorry. On August 20th, as I mentioned, Diamantios Garais, a Greek scholar and leader of the Greek War of Independence, wrote to Boyer, as he did to European nations and to the United States, to ask for financial and military support. On January 15th, 1822, Boyer responded. Okay, next slide. And that letter is preserved in Greek, translated from the French, in a historical essay on the Greek Revolution by Ioannis Philemon, a member of the Philhellenic, which was founded, as many of you know, in Russia, in Odessa, now Ukraine, in 1814. It was the roots of the Greek struggle for independence, a revolutionary fighter. This original letter was preserved in the Greek National Library, and Philemon translated it and published it. Okay, what he wrote, you have the text before you. It's a deeply moving letter, but just to, and I wanted you each to have a copy to have so you can read it more carefully at your own leisure. But among the things that he said was such a noble and legitimate cause, especially following its initial successes, could not leave the people of Haiti indifferent, who, like the Greeks, had long endured under an ignominious yoke and had shattered the head of tyranny with their chains. Like James Williams, as George mentioned, these are people who understood slavery. And so this is how Boyer responded as the first independent republic to recognize Greece. And this is the most moving part. He said to them, citizens, not fighters, not those engaged in a struggle for freedom, citizens of a new republic. Convey to your co-patriots the warmest wishes that the people of Haiti send. On behalf of your liberation. Next slide. The same was not to be the reception in the United States. President James Monroe immediately rejected the Greek appeal for recognition in 1821. Those students of U.S. history know that Monroe was involved in something that he considered essential to U.S. interests, the Monroe Doctrine, which called for no more colonial expansion or interference in the Western Hemisphere, nor correspondingly would the United States interfere in European affairs, which included, of course, the Greek struggle for independence. That would be formalized in 1823, but already Monroe and those who thought in the same way, for very legitimate reasons, had begun to consolidate these ideas. In 1824, Representative Daniel Webster, he's often shown old and grumpy, but this is what he looked like in 1825, so that gives you a sense of what he looked like. Our eloquent representative from Massachusetts rose in the House of Representatives, and this is a painting of the House of Representatives at that time, a different address, but to give you a real sense of what it looked like. Arose and stressed the importance of supporting a republican form of government over monarchies which abounded throughout the world. Henry Clay of Kentucky supported this as well, pointing to the suffering that the Greek people had already endured and reminding the listeners in our Congress that this was a Christian nation. Okay. This history admirably was lifted up by the Maliotis Center, which is on the campus of Philhellenic College and Holy Cross. This was in 2022. It's called Discover the Greek Revolution Through American Eyes. I cannot say enough about the integrity, the historical integrity of this exhibit, how much it tried to communicate the truth of history, from a Philhellenic point of view, of course, but without sugarcoating and without distortion. An impressive and beautiful exhibit. Okay, next.
Where is that?
This was in 2022. It's no longer it's a revolving exhibit. So, but this is where I first saw this. Okay. And then in that exhibit, there was this poster, which showed exactly the history I'm speaking about. Recognition of Greece after 1820. U.S. Congress says no. Haiti says yes. Haiti says yes, right? And that, next slide. This is the poster that, a part of the poster that really highlights the central role of Haiti. This is a history that is, by the way, as I discovered when I lectured in 2024 in Nafplio, is a history that's actually well known to most Greeks. It is not a history that is well known, I think, to not only to most Greek Americans, but to most Americans. And it's something that I'm so honored today to have the opportunity to talk to you about, something that George was very familiar with, again, because of his own education, but also being a Greek citizen. Next slide. In 1825, 21 years after Haiti declared independence, France forced Haiti, the King of France, forced Haiti to pay 150 million francs as compensation for lost property, the bodies of enslaved people, including their land, under threat of blockade and re-enslavement. France was ready to sail and do exactly that. This is known as the independence debt. It was later slightly reduced, but these payments continued for over a century. Final payments ended, this is unbelievable, in 1947. These were 150 million gold francs. The modern value today is something like $21 billion with interest, which France also continued to collect. What we're seeing here is a beautiful scene from 2021 during the pandemic, where Stratos Efthimiou, the General Consul of Greece in Boston at the time, welcomed the consul of his counterpart, the consul Hans Charles. Hans Charles traveled from Haiti to be welcomed on the USS Constitution. Stratos Efthymio gave Hans Charles a marble boat, a sculpture by the sculptor Petros Mamarinos to thank Haiti for honoring Greece on March 25th. And Hans Charles read a beautiful speech. I won't quote the whole thing as we're closing, but let me just read you a little bit of it. So this man, Hans Charles, gave an address on board the USS Constitution to the people gathered there in honor of Greek Independence Day on March 25th. He said that independence was acquired on the battlefield but not given. He said that Haiti was striving to have its independence recognized by its former executioners, and that his own president, Jean-Pierre Boyer, made Haiti the first country to recognize the independence of Greece from the Ottoman Empire. He said, Hans Charles said, "This magnanimous gesture of the state of Haiti at that time confirms the adage that says that the poorest are often the most generous people because they know what suffering is. People who are in need understand better the pain of those who are struggling to get themselves out." He said, "Haiti has known misery and stigma, so it understands how other brotherly countries feel when they are bowed under the weight of slavery and misery. This is why we join forces with Greece for their liberation." He said, "Even today, in this period of pandemic where there are no borders to the spread of the COVID disease, solidarity between people is the best weapon to defeat the common enemy. On behalf of the Republic of Haiti, I wish a happy Independence Day to the people of Greece around the world. Finally, I would add that my own country, Haiti, continues to pay the heavy burden of this war of independence and its solidarity with the peoples who are living in situations of exploitation." And here that is a reference to that debt, to that horrific debt that went on for over a century and essentially made it impossible for Haiti to build education, healthcare, governmental infrastructure, all the things that would have been required for it to actually flourish as a country. So we look at the poverty and anarchy in Haiti today. That is part of the direct result of what happened with French debt payments, again, to compensate for the value of the slaves who themselves liberated themselves. He finally said, "I take this opportunity to solicit the solidarity of all so Haiti can take a new run-up and break out of this infernal circle of chronic uncertainty." He says, "Long live solidarity between peoples to overcome all the evils that bother our world, and let us create a world of peace where life is good for everyone. Happy Independence Day, dear Greek friends." And the next slide. It's astonishing. The more one looks into this, as George was saying, the more the web of connections becomes clear. The USS Constitution, although it could not officially participate in the Greek struggle for independence against the Ottoman Empire, was cruising around the Aegean between 1824 and 1828, and definitely offered help. It delivered supplies, often to the Greeks who were fighting. The philanthropist Samuel Gridley Howe was commissioned on it for a brief time, and it engaged in a number of battles with other in other attacks and with other European difficulties in that time. Again, it was very, very active in the Aegean, and we should think of it as a symbol of pride and independence that was, in fact, behind the scenes helping the Greek struggle. Here it is, under sail, old Ironsides, still active, the oldest commissioned ship in the U.S. Navy. Okay, next slide. And finally, I just want to conclude with the most recent interaction between these two countries, Haiti and Greece. This is the current Consul General of Haiti in Boston, Regine Winza, and she spoke to the National Herald immediately at the end of the Greek Pride Parade on Sunday, April 27th. It was conducted in French, but Simeon Tegos, who is our Consul General of Greece in Boston, speaks French fluently, and so it was translated. And like Hans Charles, she said, "I truly feel great pride that it was my country Haiti, which was the first to recognize the independence of Greece, and we consider this extremely important for our history in the name of the people of Haiti. She said there's a history of brotherhood and very strong and sincere sentiments of admiration from the Haitian people. Could I have the next slide? This is a marching dance troupe that joined the parade last year in the Haitian independence.
This is in Boston.
This is in Boston, yes. This is right by the public garden. Comments from 5 years ago, but there are similar comments after the parade this year. These are from Haitians, some from Haiti, and some from Haitian Americans from the U.S. And a comment about the Princess of Greece actually visiting. Yeah, 1935, that's right. Although in the Haitian earthquake in 2010, Greece was among the first to send extensive monetary help, supplies, support, not just money, but relief teams to Haiti to help. This is not a relationship that's forgotten. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so in conclusion, I just wanted to say that I hope listening to these histories that George and I have set out, that it's given all of us a chance to think and to reflect on brotherhood, on shared ideals, on the love of freedom, on the willingness to sacrifice for freedom. And I hope that we can remember this when we, for my part, when we hear our Haitian brothers and sisters slandered or persecuted anywhere in the world today, but especially in our own country. These are those who spoke up for Greece and for freedom when no one else would or could. So we owe them so much gratitude, and they remember Greece to this day with great love, great affection, and I would say great hope. Thank you so much.
Let's give a big round of applause to both speakers. It's truly wonderful. And we have an opportunity to ask questions for both speakers. Anybody has a question or a comment?
Maybe I can make 2 comments. Yeah, learned from Kimberly 2 things. I did not know that people of color fought in support the word of American independence. I did not know. I was in Savannah and I did not see that. I'm ashamed about this. And the second thing I learned that our consul speaks French. Yes. I don't know that. Although it's not surprising, the diplomatic corps are expected to be multilingual. But back in the day, it was almost French was the language of diplomacy.
That's right.
But now it's not anymore. Now it's TikTok and basically tweets.
I have a quick comment. It really struck me how, for a brief moment in the 1820s,
I'm wondering if we could just be quiet while we're doing the questions, just so that we can all hear each other. That would be great. Thank you so much, Father.
For a brief moment in the 1820s, there were 2 young nations that treated each other equally. So just think about that. And it's been 200 years since then. I don't think our world has advanced. We have regressed in many ways. And it's not just true of Haiti. Pretty much the whole African continent is in this situation. So just something to think about. That spirit of, every human being desires freedom. That spirit of freedom has inspired everybody, but not everybody has taken full advantage of freedom, even to this day. Zach.
George, terrific presentation. I learned a lot and I've got much more to read. And maybe it's a question for the week. And that is, as I look at the solidarity and support that the U.S. government provided to both Haiti and Greece in these very difficult times, how do we apply those learnings to the situation today? And in particular, not to get confrontation, in particular, because I'm not a confrontation guy. We think about Venezuela. We think about an oppressed people. We think about Iran, maybe differently than the way the administration is. We think about Cuba. We might think about China. We might think about other parts of the world where there are clearly oppressed people in their countries. One solution is you leave them alone and they'll sort it out. But I saw something different in your presentation. So the question is, how would you apply the learnings of that era to where we are today? George, a thought, please.
That's very diplomatic. For the diplomatic goal, sure that if we can at least educate ourselves on what is really happening and know the truth, because there's a saying that in a war, the first casualty is truth. What we hear from the news is state-controlled most of the time, or controlled by those who want to control the public opinion. And what we mostly learn is not the real situation. We hear fragments, bits and pieces that we do not know. So learn and try to know history, because history repeats itself. Sometimes the second time you talk. But learn, educate yourself and learn. And I would say be able to pick up the truth in order to know what is happening and not be swayed by let's say government issued truth. Try to know what exactly is happening.
I'd like to pick up on what. Would you like?
First, yeah. I just really want to second what George said, and I didn't mention this in my talk because we are really looking at the history here, but I just want to speak to the witness of our Christian faith on this point that Zach raised. We have in it a way, as Father often says in his sermons, we have a way to transcend the horrible political divisions that are ripping our country apart. But we also have a way to kind of see into the truth of the matter. Who is our brother and sister? Well, we learn from our Lord and from the Gospels and from the epistles. In Christ there is no east nor west, male or female, slave or free. That each person is made in the image of God. And although our own, as you were saying, Paul, our own identities and families and countries matter deeply to us, our faith, I think, gives us a kind of clear vision to see the struggles of others who are, as Zach was saying, horrifically oppressed, and to recognize them. And it's so interesting to me that Jean-Pierre Boyer did say, I wish we could send help. We are impoverished ourselves. This notion that he sent 25 tons of coffee turned out to be apocryphal, but it was a reference to another shipment. But he did offer that moral support. And by the way, in response to a request from Greece for recognition, this is so important. They asked, Haiti, will you recognize us? U.S. said no, Haiti said yes. But it's more than it's more than that recognition and political recognition. It is the seeing of the other through the eyes of a shared humanity, a shared life in being images of God. And this is what our faith gives us. Another level that is deeper even than political awareness of struggle. So that is, I think, the starting point, at least for me, Zach. And the distinction between governments and peoples, especially in something like the case of Iran, is so important.
Thank you, Kimberly. Since Kimberly gave a beautiful religious answer, I'll give more of a historical political answer. Because all the cases that you mentioned, Zach, are examples of revolutions that have failed the people. And another, Iran, Cuba, China, so on. Eastern Europe was another example. Now, it's not enough to fight for freedom and have a revolution. You have to bring the right values. And Greece did that, went back to the Hellenic values, the values of democracy. And to your question, what can be done? Sometimes it doesn't work always, but Eastern Europe is a good example of a completely failed area that has now risen and is competing almost on equal terms with Western Europe. True freedom came by embracing again strong values and rebuilding the country. So I think the best thing we can do as Americans is always project, not impose, but cultivate, project, and represent our values. We sometimes do that well, sometimes not that well. But that's the best thing that Greece had to offer, and now America has to offer, Western Europe has to offer, are these values. True freedom that comes together with responsibility and and the community spirit and all of that. So hopefully there's the sun will shine in those areas too, hopefully one day. Any other questions?
Maybe can I add something about Haiti? Haiti people actually volunteers were on a boat to come to fight for this independence. This ship never made it. It sank in the Atlantic. That's another sacrifice, and sank. So can you imagine these days across the Atlantic? There's probably more than a month travel. This happened. That's another sad. And the people actually volunteered to come to fight. Never made it. Much like they did for America.
Right.
They came, they boarded the ship and disappeared.
Yeah, and just to follow up on what George was saying, that's why it's so interesting to see history remembered across such long periods of time. The city of Halifax sending Boston a Christmas tree because we helped them during that horrible explosion. Greece coming immediately when Haiti was devastated by the worst earthquake in the Western Hemisphere, where 300,000 people died. Greece was one of the first on the ground with actual help. And this memory of that shared sacrifice, it's extraordinary. You think that history kind of dies and fades away, but as William Faulkner said, the past is never dead, it's not even past, which I am very fond of.
It's kind of curious that so much of what was brought up today was by the arts, like the poets, the writers, the painters, at a time when that was a form of media that people listened to. And now it's a really different world with so much complexity of what we see. It's a curious stream that seemed to really support all those ideas, whereas now it's sort of splintered all over. So I don't know, with this modern, political, economic,
You feel as though the arts don't have the same kind of power.
Yeah, the same attention.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it was amazing, all the, how do you say it, encapsulating the history with these things that you can still go through and realize. I don't know.
I think it still comes down to people standing up when they see oppression.
Yeah.
Oppression happens, that individuals have to stand up and not sit back and allow the oppression to continue. That's what the Haitians did, that's what others did to help us in our revolution.
Yeah, and Haiti, they paid for it in 4 years. That was one of the reasons why France was angry with them, because they were still fighting the Greeks that they had supported them. It's really hard to stand up when you see oppression because it's dangerous. As George said, it's really dangerous. And that's another thing where our faith can help us, because our faith is a sacrificial faith. Our faith says, nevertheless, we stand up for brothers and sisters who are suffering or who are being oppressed, whether or not we are harmed. And that's such a hard way to live, and something I forget daily. But if we can remember, the witness of our Lord, then we won't be so afraid, I think, to speak up. And that could Protestant evangelical question, what would Jesus do? It's a really good one. It's a really good one. And I appreciate saying that.
So can I piggyback on that? Because I think what we're also talking about is our faith developing character and virtues in us. And what we see today is a lack of character and virtue look around the world. Look at all the leaders around the world. Lack of character and virtue. And so, like the Greeks had, they had virtue. They had something that meant something, they were willing to die for it. I'm just not sure that without our faith, that we can conjure up that same sense just because we want to be good human beings. That's not enough.
Right, exactly.
Our faith is what helps us get through.
Yeah, we have to keep our eyes on the face of Jesus and think, I'm so lucky and so blessed to have his sacrifice and his blood that still is poured out for us for so long. And he said it's not enough otherwise.
Any other questions? If not, let's give the two speakers another big round of applause. We want to continue this teamwork for other occasions.
Next year's talk will be very difficult because we raised the bar so high.
Yes, he did, yes.
The bar is so high that I
to
really
raise
do
that
not
bar.
know what will be done next year.